Yeah, I mean, I think that was like one of our goals tonight was to come out and start well because we've kind of struggled in that area the last couple games. So thought we did that, really well. Our defense wasn't very good in the first quarter, but it was better there in the second. And then we're able to build a comfortable lead. And I thought we just played with really good pace and sharing the ball really well. It felt like our offense was really flowing.
Caitlin Clark just did something no player has done in 30 years of WNBA history. Not once, twice, in the same week. Last night against Connecticut, she put up 27 points and 11 assists in only 27 minutes. And by the time the buzzer went off, Clark and the Indiana Fever had broken 15 different records in a single game. 9 of them belonged to Clark alone. Stick around because one of these records has never been touched by anyone else in WNBA history. And I mean, nobody's even come close. This wasn't a close game. This was a full-blown demolition. And we're breaking down every single record that fell. Show your love for Caitlin by commenting CCMVP down below. Before any of this happened, before the records and the scoreboard pointing, everybody wanted to know one thing. Was Caitlin Clark actually healthy, or was she just gutting her way through games on a bad back? That question hung over the Fever for weeks. Clark missed time with injury earlier in the season, and every time she came back, fans held their breath watching how she moved, how she planted on that groin, whether she'd wheeze after a hard cut. The absences piled up, and so did the worry. But Clark herself wasn't playing that game of doubt. She came out and said flat out that she felt back to myself after 3 straight good games. And that's not the kind of thing you say unless you mean it.
It's kind of nice when, you build a hefty lead like that and then you're able to kind of get some rest there in the fourth quarter, and then a lot of my teammates were able to get in and contribute, and it was really fun to see them, keep the same level of play. Like, everybody came in, and when their number was called, they were ready, and that was even the same for the first half. Like, when people got subbed in, they were ready, and, they allowed our offense to keep going, and then our defense kind of kicked in too, so I'm just proud of everybody.
Stephanie White backed it up too, and not just with words. For the first time in a long stretch there was no minutes restriction on Clark heading into this game. Think about what that actually means for a team gearing up for a title run. You don't lift the restriction on your franchise player unless the training staff, the medical staff, and the coach all agree she's cleared. No hedging. No, let's see how she feels in the first quarter. Full green light. That's a massive signal. And it came right before the biggest statistical explosion of her career. Her teammates felt it, too. Kelsey Mitchell talked about Clark's determination, her push to be the best version of herself every single night, and Aaliyah Boston kept pointing out how Clark's comfort level kept climbing game after game. That's the part fans on the outside couldn't see. From the outside, it was all speculation, all can she really go full speed? All cautious framing from analysts who'd watched her limp through earlier games. Inside the Fever locker room, the mood was completely different. Calm, confident, almost like they knew something the rest of the league didn't. That gap between outside doubt and inside belief is exactly where this story lives. Reporters kept asking about health. Teammates kept talking about rhythm, and Clark kept insisting she felt great, building on each outing, one game closer to whatever this was building toward. Nobody outside that locker room knew just how big this was about to get. And honestly, even inside the building, you get the sense they knew something special was coming without knowing the exact number.
It's important. I think momentum and just having the basketball guys on your side in ways that that you really don't understand. Really, I think it's true. I think the way in which you love the game, you pour into the game, is the way you want it to show love to you back. And I think that we've done a decent job lately as far as keeping ourselves committed to the grind and committed to what Steph has set for us. But more importantly, I think momentum going into our second half of our season is really big for us. Once you start, you kind of don't stop. And I think our next couple of opponents that we do come to see, I think these games kind of help us prepare to see whatever we want to see in the second half of the season.
The pre-game room had a loose energy to it, the kind you get when a team feels good and isn't forcing anything. Clark wasn't hedging about her body, wasn't dodging questions with the usual athletes speak about taking it day by day. She sounded like someone who'd already decided the doubt didn't matter anymore. And here's a small taste of what was coming. Music. By the end of the night, Clark's line read 27 points, 11 assists. We'll get into exactly why that stat line breaks the sport in half a little later, but just sit with those two numbers for a second. Clark didn't just tell reporters she was fine. She walked out onto that court and made the entire Connecticut Sun roster feel it. possession after possession. And by the time the first quarter ended, everybody in the building understood the health scare was over. What happened next wasn't just a good game. It was proof right there in real time that back to myself meant something completely different than anyone expected. It's such a great compliment to a player that they can make the game simpler and get her teammates easy shots. It's the way I call us servants of the game. You think about the skill set of your teammates. You put the balls. By halftime, the Fever had 70 points on the board. 70, that's a franchise record for any half in team history, blowing past their old mark of 64 points from last July. And here's the part that really tells the story. Clark scored or assisted on 35 of those 70 points, meaning she had a hand in exactly half of everything Indiana did in that half. Every quarter they played, they scored at least 25 points, which is the kind of consistency you almost never see from a team that's supposedly still finding its rhythm. The scoring didn't stop after the break, either. Indiana finished with 123 points, a new franchise record for any game ever, and the third highest total in a non-overtime game in WNBA history. Think about that for a second. 30 years of this league, thousands of games played, and only 2 teams ever scored more in regulation than the Fever did that night. They came close to pushing it even higher. And honestly, watching the pace they played at, 130 felt like it was sitting right there for the taking. That a 70 on the scoreboard in the first half. The final score landed at 123-88. A 35-point win that stands as the second highest margin of victory in franchise history. Indiana outscored Connecticut in every single quarter, which means there was never a stretch where the Sun even threatened to climb back into it. And that 100-point output wasn't a one-off either. It's Indiana's 11th game this season scoring 100 or more, which ties a WNBA record. And they've still got 17 games left on the schedule to break it outright. Harris turns on the Jets, banks it in, and a foul. 3-point play coming for Ty Harris, who hit a 3 a moment ago. None of this happens if the bench falls flat, and it didn't. Tyasha Harris came off the bench and dropped 12 points with 6 assists. Monique Billings added 12 of her own. And between Sophie Cunningham, Grace Van Lutten, and Michaela Timpson, the reserves kept the pressure on Connecticut so the starters could actually rest. The bench combined for 31 points, which meant Stephanie White could pull her stars for stretches without watching the lead shrink. That kind of depth is what turns a big night into a blowout. She has turned into, especially over these last few weeks. Boston deep position size advantage and 1. The quickness they just feed it into an Aaliyah. And that's how you land on the trio record. Clark's 27, Mitchell's 23, Boston's 22, and all 3 hit 20 points in the same game for the 7th time in their careers and the 3rd time this season. That's now the most games in WNBA history where a trio of teammates all scored 20 or more ever. This wasn't Clark carrying 2 passengers. This was 3 all-stars clicking on the same night. And that's exactly the kind of engine that turns into individual history, which is where we're headed next. 9 of the 15 records from that game belong to one player, and a couple of them have never been touched by anybody in 30 years of this league. Let's start small before it gets ridiculous. Clark now has 14 shots made from 30-plus feet this season, a WNBA record on its own. That's not a step-back 3 from the wing. That's the logo. That's the kind of shot coaches yell at you for taking, music, in practice. And Clark's hitting them at a rate nobody in league history has ever hit, music, them at. On both sides, Boston over to her fellow All-Star, and Caitlin Clark gets the scoring started for Indiana. An area to watch throughout this. Mitchell the fastest in the W, Clark 2 for 2 from outside the arc. Here's Caitlin Clark, cheering, my friend. We knew you were where you were going. Some preserves. Clark is the only player in WNBA history to record 25 points and 10 assists in under 30 minutes. And she's done it twice in the same week. Twice. 30 years of this league, hundreds of players, and this exact combination of scoring, playmaking, and pure efficiency has belonged to exactly one person in the same 7-day stretch. Then there's the plus-minus. Clark finished the Connecticut game with a plus 26, meaning Indiana outscored the Sun by 26 points during her time on the floor. Pair that with her 27 points and 11 assists, and she becomes the first player ever, with 25 plus points, 10 plus assists, and a plus 25 or better all in the same game. That's not just Clark scoring. That's Clark scoring while her team dominates every single minute she's out there. Clark goes behind the back. Clark spinning on Miller. Clark flips it up, gets the roll and one. Estimate how much time Caitlin Clark has spent in the gym working, perfecting. Clark now has 7 career games with 25 points, 10 assists, and 5 threes made. Sit with this. Music, the rest of WNBA history. Every player who's ever laced up combined for 4 such games total, Clark alone has 7. She's not just ahead of the field, she's ahead of the entire field added together. Same story with 2010 assist games this season. Clark has 6 of them. The rest of the WNBA, every team, every guard, every star combined has 6. That's the whole league matching one player stat for stat. And she's still got 17 games left to pull away even further. And through all of it, Clark's averaging the fewest minutes per game in a 20-point per season by a guard in WNBA history. That's the efficiency number that ties the whole night together, because this isn't a player grinding out heavy minutes to hit these marks. This is someone doing it in less time than anybody else who's ever tried. So, when Clark said she felt back to myself before this game, this is what that actually looks like on paper. 9 records, 1 night, and at least 2 of them belonging to a category of 1. The pre-game promise wasn't just words. It was a preview of exactly this. I think just playing up tempo, playing in transition, trying to find my teammates early. Obviously with the way we're able to make shots, it really opens the floor. While Clark grabbed every headline, Kelsey Mitchell quietly put her name next to the greats of this league. Mitchell knocked down 3 or more threes for the 11th straight game, which now stands as the 5th longest streak like that in WNBA history. Think about what that means, music, for a defense. You can't leave Mitchell open for a second. Not on a curl, not in transition, not on a simple kick out, because she's hitting shots at a pace only 4 other players have ever sustained longer. Defenses already had to pick their poison with Clark running the show. Now they've got Mitchell setting fires from the corner every single night, and there's no easy answer left on the floor. Then the third quarter got tense. Clark took contact on a drive. The kind of hard foul that's been following her all season, and the whistle blew again right after. Sunyard Sia Rivers said something to Clark after the play, claiming she'd locked her up. Clark shot back without hesitating, telling her to check the scoreboard. Fair point. Indiana led 95-67 at that moment, so the confidence wasn't exactly misplaced. Got a technical foul tonight. Where? Yeah, that technical is Clark's 7th of the season. And under technicals in a season trigger an automatic 1-game suspension. Stephanie White even joked about it after the game, saying if Clark wants to be strategic about resting up, she could let her fly and just take the suspension on her own terms. But White wasn't really laughing about the bigger picture. She talked about Clark's fire being exactly what makes her who she is, and how finding the balance between that competitiveness and staying on the floor is the real challenge going forward. And that's really the point here. This isn't some separate storyline from the records. It's the same competitive edge running through both. The player who scored or assisted on 35 first-half points is the same player who's not backing down from a guard talking trash with the lead already at 28. Clark isn't interested in changing how she plays just to avoid a whistle. And honestly, that refusal to shrink is probably why she's putting up numbers nobody else in league history has touched. That same week, Clark got named the cover athlete for NBA 2K27 Deluxe Edition. And this isn't some WNBA-only spin-off cover. This is the Global Music Premium Edition, releasing worldwide on September 4th, putting her right alongside names like Victor Wembanyama and Derrick Rose. No WNBA player has ever gotten this kind of cover before. Clark called it cool and pretty surreal, and said she hopes seeing herself on a cover like that gets young girls picking up a controller and realizing women's basketball belongs in the same conversation as the men's game. That's reach going way past the league itself, landing in living rooms of kids who've never watched a single WNBA possession. I mean, like, I'm never going to back down. And you know, I think it was the same thing with the way Kelsey was in the first half, too. Like, you know, she got one in the eye. Like, she's never going to back down from a moment. And I think just like continue to try to control your emotions the best you can. And that intensity and that fire is what makes me me. But also like knowing my team needs me and finding a good balance of that. But, you know, I don't think like I'm going to be playing like with that in the back of my head. I think that might hinder my play a little bit. So, I think just continue to be myself and then just try to refocus to, focusing on my teammates and how I can help them. None of the record-breaking or the cover reveals happen without the gritty stuff underneath it. Lexi Hull and Monique Billings handle the physical stretches all night, boxing out, taking charges, doing the stuff that doesn't show up in a highlight reel, but keeps the stars able to operate. Between the technical foul drama and the 2K cover landing in the same week, one thing's obvious. Clark's impossible to ignore right now. Whether she's pointing at a scoreboard or staring back at you from a video game case, picture the walk off the floor. 27 minutes on the clock, 27 points, 11 assists, a stat line nobody's produced in 30 years, and Clark's done it twice in 1 week. She said she felt like herself again before a tip-off. And the box score didn't just agree, it buried the doubt completely. Now look at what's stacking up for 2026. Clark, Mitchell, and Boston all hitting 20 in the same game. A three-headed offense that finally looks unstoppable and an MVP case building in real time. This team's peeing early. Stick around because the next game might top this one. Show your love for Caitlin by commenting CCMVP down below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on all notifications as we're bringing you all the action and top stories. Click the video on the screen and we'll see you in the next.